We're going to talk about single accreditation. And we're going to talk a little bit about the imperatives that brought us here. We're going to talk about some of the features of what single accreditation is going to do and the benefits it's going to provide TSTC. So, single accreditation. Read this slide. Susan Combs is the comptroller of the currency for the state of Texas. She's a really smart person. Came out of West Texas. She's a rancher. She's about 6'3", an imposing figure who is the kindest person you've ever met. Really smart. Back in the late 2000s, I want to say it was like 6 or 7, somewhere around in there, she started ringing the bell. She started saying, look, we spend a ton of money on higher ed in Texas, but I can't tell you that it's well aligned to the workforce needs of Texas employers. That's what she started saying. Now, this happens to be a fact across the country. Higher ed is not well aligned to the needs of workforce in all the skill levels. Here are 3 levels of skills and worker availabilities, and this is data from Texas. So it's not national, it's our state alone. It comes from the Census Bureau and the U.S. Department of Labor. We have also confirmed that this is true for Texas with the Texas Workforce Commission. They've told us, yes, this is true. High-skilled workers are typically defined as those who have a baccalaureate or higher, and the job requires a baccalaureate or higher. That's a high skill by kind of definition. Here's one of the interesting things. We actually have more baccalaureate degrees than the state needs. Now, that probably shocks everybody because we've worked so hard at telling people go to college. Well, the reason is because we are preparing the wrong blend of bachelor's degrees. We have way too many liberal arts degrees. We have way too many theater arts degrees. We have way too many what often is called soft degrees and not enough hard degrees. In fact, if you look at the data from 1960 until today, almost all of the growth in higher ed has come in non-technical, scientific, or engineering fields in higher ed. Starting at about 1960, the percent of graduates in those hard sciences leveled off while all of the growth in higher ed was in the soft side. The problem is those soft sides usually don't lead to great paying jobs. Down here, you know all about this, the low skill. Low skill is I have a high school diploma or less. Low skill jobs have what we all know about, and that is there's way more workers than there are jobs. That's the unemployment right there. The opposite of unemployment are more jobs than there are workers. Here's the middle skills. Middle skills is post-secondary training. It can be a technical cert, it can be an associate's degree, it could be just job-related training, it could be anything after high school but not a bachelor's degree that is aimed at getting a job. This is what we do for a living. This gap here in Texas is 12 percentage points. What this explains why, if you're a faculty member and you meet with industry on a regular basis, this explains why they keep saying to you, holy cow, I need more graduates out of you. Please send me more graduates. The reason is there is a severe shortage. This is commonly referred to as the skills gap. The skills gap began to occur a while ago. Susan Combs started ringing the bell. We aren't putting out the right blend. And now it's coming home to roost. I'll give you an example. I was up in East Texas a while ago, about a month ago. I went to the Texas Association of Manufacturers was up there trying to whip up a lot of interest in this problem. I got to talk with the HR director of Eastman Chemical. They are a large chemical company. Here's what the HR guy told me. 40% of my technicians are eligible for retirement. 40%. And then he showed me a graph that indicated, and the supply of younger workers coming in to fill those jobs is not there. So what does that tell us about the skills gap? It's going to get worse. Because the supply isn't there. Let's go here. The top 10 most urgently needed job fields in America. This is what they are. Top 10. That does not require a bachelor's degree. That does not require a bachelor's degree. That does not require a bachelor's degree. These do. That does not. That does not. That does not. That does not. In Texas, we have a program called Closing the Gaps. Closing the Gaps is a worthy program. It was well intended and did the right thing. We have more people going to college in Texas today than we ever have before. What it did poorly was define what college is. Because you sit around the kitchen table in most households in Texas, and they think it's a bachelor's degree. Any bachelor's degree. In fact, they think that any bachelor's degree is better than any associate's degree. And we look at the graduates out of, say, Bob's program over there, and his graduates consistently earn almost twice as much money their first year in the workplace as the average bachelor's degree in Texas. Twice. And he can put someone through his program in 2 years for the same amount of money that I paid the University of Texas for my daughter to go there for 1 semester. By the way, she's right here. I showed her this chart. Okay, this is what we teach. We have 4 of the top 10. Our truck drivers consistently make $40,000 or $50,000 a year their first year out of school, or their first year out of school, and that is often a 6-week training program, 8-week training program. Cost them $1,000 or less, maybe 2. Get a $40,000. If you want to go to Klein Shale, Eagle Ford Shale, somewhere in the oil patch, you can make $50,000 or more in the oil patch driving a truck. The outlook for those jobs is we can't figure out when it'll nose over. It's like nursing. The demand is so strong for so consistent, we don't know when it'll nose over. The skills gap says that we don't have enough workers for the jobs. This is part of the other reason why it's going to get worse before it gets better. We have a supply gap. This is the contact hours or the classes taught in Texas by the 2-year schools, all schools, us, the 50 community college districts, all schools. The blue section, this line of best fit right here, shows the trend in gen ed classes. This is the result of closing the gaps. We're getting more people taking class. They're going to college. Cool. This red line, that's technical classes. The green line, allied health. The demand in allied health is exploding. Technical is too. We already have a shortage and it's going to get worse. So our output of these fields is virtually flat while we're doing a whole lot more theater arts. We have a problem, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. Meanwhile, at TSTC, this is the part where you get to give yourself a round of applause. According to the coordinating board, this is their data straight off their website. For the years that are available, and we don't have 13 yet, our number of graduates across the state of Texas has increased 32% in 4 years. 32%. Way to go, guys. Give yourselves a hand. Now, how about this? This is the amount of money those graduates made the first year on the job. It's gone up 54%. 54%. Why is that important to you? Tell you why. Under the new funding formula, it's placement times earnings. So this variable is up 32%. This variable is up 54%. Multiply the two together, and how does our prospects look in the years to come? Pretty dang good. Not to mention, did I talk about the fact there's a big high demand for our graduates? So here it is. Texas has a skills gap. It's real. It's out there. I have been in Austin talking to the legislature about it. Look at the testimony I did in May, and you'll see online, and you'll see I talked about we have a skills gap, and you have to invest in technical ed to fix it. You've got to do this. The other is we know it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's just a matter of math. The technicians that are incumbent in the workplace today are graying like me. They're old guys. They're baby boomers. They're looking at the bass boat saying, why do I go to work today? How about I retire? And there's nobody there to take their place. When that happens, the upward pressure on those salaries is going to continue to grow. Because Eastman Chemical is already paying, BASF, we'll use them. I talked to the manager of the plant down in the Golden Triangle. He says that his technicians that have 5 years on the job that came out of, say, Bob Lovelace's program, it's not unusual for them to make $100,000 a year. That's going to go up. And the reason is he's got 30% of his workforce that's eligible for retirement. Here's the good news. For the state of Texas, the policymakers in Austin have begun to notice. That's how we got HB 5. If you weren't paying attention, HB 5 was the bill that, among many other things, brought shop class back to high school. Made it okay to do career and technical ed. In fact, defined a pathway for students who want to do career and technical, so that they could go do that and prepare for professions that we teach for. They aren't, and the hope is that eventually this will begin to solve the stigma, the soft prejudice that exists in K-12 today against technical. We all know it's out there. But this is the beginning of the solution. The other thing that is the beginning of the solution are Texas employers. Our phone is ringing off the hook with Texas employers who are saying, how can we join together and get the message across in Austin that we need to strategically invest in technical ed ahead? Because we are about to starve ourselves to death in terms of talent. And we'll have to rethink whether we're going to stay in Texas. I'm literally hearing people say that. So, we think all of these will come together to make a growing demand for technical ed. Bad for the state, because the pipeline isn't there yet, but good for us. Why? We're the right school, with the right product, with the right know-how, in the right place at the right time, when the need is exactly needed. You put all those together, and here's what we think. We think that TSTC has a growth potential in the years ahead that we've never seen before. In fact, let me put a real fine point on this. Shame on us if we miss this window of opportunity. We know it's there. It's as obvious as the nose on your face. Shame on us. We showed the board all of this stuff last year. And they said, Are you ready? Simple question, complicated answer. We started looking at ourselves saying, maybe not. Maybe we're not ready. Did you know that in the past 6 months I have had 7 cities call me and say, can we have a TSTC in our city? 7. Because they have this same problem. Their employers are telling them, if you can't get us a workforce, we're leaving. So here's what we also know. We're going to have more campuses. We opened a new one. We aren't going to close anything, for the record. We aren't closing anything. We opened one in Hutto 3 years ago. We opened one in South Dallas, Red Oak. This year it comes online. And what a lot of people don't know yet, but I'm announcing it now, is we will be opening a new campus in Fort Bend County, which is the western suburb of Houston. So look at what we're doing. We've hit Austin, we've hit Dallas, we've hit Houston. It wasn't accidental. We're going to where the people are because we want to grow TSTC as a whole and make that benefit of size available to everyone. It's on purpose. So as we answered the questions, here's what we did. The first thing we did is the presidents and I went down to Austin, holed ourselves up in a room down there with flip charts, whiteboards, and data, and we began to say, what do we got? What do we need? How do we get there? And as we began to answer that question, one thing became really obvious. We can't keep doing business the way we've been doing it before. And it really slapped us in the face as we opened up these new locations. Because here's what happened. We had Hutto available to us. What did we do? Well, we're already organized in 4 versions of TSTC. We have the Waco version, we have the Harlingen version, we have the Marshall version, we have the West Texas version. And unless you spend a lot of time working across those campuses, you have no idea how much variance there is between all of those. So our question number 1 was, which version of TSTC are we going to put in Hutto? We had the same situation in Red Oak. Which version are we going to put over there? We picked Marshall. The reason, by the way, that I picked Marshall. I made that decision. The reason we picked Marshall, they were the smallest, and we wanted to try to get them some more size. That's why they got Red Oak. I'll tell you, though, Marshall has had to really work hard. That school already has people doing 3 jobs because they're a small school. And so getting that center up out of the ground, coming out of a small school, that's been a real challenge for them. They deserve major kudos. But here's the problem that we immediately saw. All the lessons that Waco learned when they opened the Hutto location are totally blind to the people in Marshall as they open a new location. None of the lessons got transferred because we don't talk to each other across those boundaries. So it's like having the first year of experience in a job over and over and over again. I mean, we're not progressing there. So we looked at that. We looked at the fact that today we figure we spend somewhere around $500,000 doing SACs. And if we were to consolidate the accreditations, we think we could cut that number down by about $400,000. And that's a conservative. That's not counting the salary parts. That's just lost productivity, rule keeping, record keep, all that kind of stuff. We could spend that $400,000 in raises, in the labs, buying equipment that we sorely need, all kinds of other places. But if we keep being accredited 4 times and we do SACs 4 times, we're never going to recapture that money. We'll just keep throwing it over the edge. So what it became obvious to us is, and we went to the board in May and said, here's the answers to your questions. We got to take advantage of our scale. We have got to find a way to be more efficient statewide. We've got to be able to move technologies back and forth wherever the demand is within Texas. And all of those kinds of things begin with, we got to combine our accreditation into one. Today, if we want to take technology from say West Texas or Harlingen had a wind program, and we had a big, and they do, and we have a big wind boom in East Texas, which we won't because there's too many pine trees. But if we did, and we wanted to move that over to East Texas, we'd have to file a substantive change. With SACs, we have to go through all this kind of rigmarole. It takes us forever to get there. And besides, both Harlingen and West Texas may or may not be real excited about sharing their curriculum with somebody else. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. So we had to take care of those barriers, and a single accreditation does that. So we told the board, we recommend it, and in May they said, do it. Well, do you want to? No, do it. So this is an active project. We have started, and will be done in July of 15. We have a team on board. It is led by Gail Lawrence. We meet at least monthly. We are beginning to sequence what has to get done and capture the scope. We are using formal project management processes to do the whole thing, and we are underway. We'll be done by July 15. There's some important things I want to talk to you about. The first is we are doing this because we expect to grow, not shrink. What we are not looking for is layoffs. That is not what this is about. A lot of people ask, first thing whenever you announce change, will I lose my job? The answer is, in all likelihood, the chances of you losing your job because of this are tiny. Probably not. What's more likely to happen is if your area is one that needs some efficiencies put on it, we'll find you jobs somewhere else in the company. We'll work through that. We'll have attrition where some people will leave, and we'll be creative in the way we move people around. At the end of this, I'll show you what our 3 big goals are, and you understand why we're going to work like crazy to do this in a really constructive, employee-friendly manner. And the reason is because y'all do all the real work. And we need you. The single accreditation has this benefit. As we realize economies and things like administration, we get to focus those resources on our core business, which is teaching students. Generally speaking, we spend more money on administration than we should. And it's about education, not administration. So I want to shrink administration. I want to grow faculty. I want to put more money in the classrooms and in student services. I want to make this the kind of place that really thrives the students. But we can't keep doing it when we have 5 versions of administration that are redundant in a lot of cases. Number 2, what we're into, I don't see that happening. Most organizational changes will occur at the top, and we'll tell you about one here in a minute. If you haven't been actively involved in single accreditation so far, chances are you're going to have a fairly limited impact on your area. Now, that's not wholly true, but generally speaking, if you haven't already heard something about changes coming to your area, then chances are you won't. This is an active project. It's done deal. When the board said go, we were over. The only final thing we have to do is to present our new corporate structure to SACs and prove to them that we fulfill the principles of accreditation in our new form. And they will either say, yes, you fulfill them, or no, you don't. But they will not approve or reject the merger. That's not their purview. So approvals, I've covered all of those. Here's a really important thing. Every single thing we do at TSTC is based by one big honkin' goal. Place more Texans in great paying jobs. That's the why of TSTC. When you're down at George's over a Big O and somebody says to you from the adjacent bar stool, what do? You can say, I change lives by placing more Texans in great paying jobs. And you'll never be wrong. That's our big honkin' goal. I'm 62. If the board will let me, I hope to stay, and my health stands up, I hope to be chancellor for about 8 more years. That'd be really cool if I can pull that off. And the reason is we have 3 other things we have to get accomplished, and I want to show you what I want to get done in the next 8 years. To realize this big honking goal, we have 3 operational objectives. The first, let me let you read it. The first one is, we're already the technical college of Texas. We're the biggest and the baddest. No one teaches more tech than we do. No one. Not Houston, not Dallas, not San Antonio, no one. We're the biggest. We have 11 locations across Texas and more are coming. We're the best. Walk into the ITC down here and look at the national championship banners hanging from the rafters. We have more national championships than the rest of the 2-year colleges in Texas put together. We have more state championships than the rest of the 2-year colleges put together. We are the 8,000-pound gorilla of technology. We're the state of Texas, and we're the gorilla. We're going to grow that position. That's number 1. Number 2, there is $250 billion donated in America every year. $250 billion. Higher ed gets a big part of that. Baylor's built a $350 million stadium down the road here. Most of it with donations. The rest with debt, but most of it with donations. Hundreds of millions of dollars in donations. But Baylor, UT, A&M, none of them, even all of them put together, don't have a more compelling story of what we do for students than TSTC. None of them. We take the kid from Connolly High School right down the road, from a modest household, been challenged his whole life. He comes to TSTC and he goes for free because our tuition fits into the Pell Grants and the other aid that's out there. But even if you had to pay, it would only cost $9,000, generally. And then we go put him in jobs like Bob's that pay twice what average bachelor's degree does. We are worthy of donations like we've never seen before in the 2-year sector. So we started working on this about a year ago. In the next 60 days, you are going to be stunned with the numbers we bring in the door. Because we're working on some gifts right now that are going to be, it'll be more money in 1 year than we've gotten in 50 before. But you have to do that on purpose. So if I get to be chancellor for 8 more years, when I retire, we're going to have a top drawer fundraising capability that puts monies in our labs and in our student scholarships in ways that is the envy of 4-year schools. That's another thing we're going to do. And then finally, and this is most important because we can't do any of the others without this, we're going to become a great place to work. I think it's time. We all work here because we believe in the mission. A lot of us selflessly give every day. And it's time for us to lift up the people who prosper the students. It's about comp, sure, salaries, but it's also about work environment. It's about work-life balance. It's about career possibilities. It's about ladders and education. It's about professional development. We are going to intentionally pursue that goal. It can't happen without commitment from the very top, and I'm standing in front of you today saying, I commit. We're going to put time and money and talent on this to be a great place to work. I can promise you we're going to pursue it, and I can't get it done in a year. It'll take a while. It'll take all of us. But one day, wouldn't it be cool if working here felt like working at Apple? Or working here felt like working at Disney? Wouldn't that be cool? Except Disney tends to pay minimum wage, so we'll do better than that. That's our goal. My commitment to it starts with, I've announced it to every one of you right up here in writing. I proved it a few weeks ago when I told the colleges, wait. We haven't done step 2 of the comp plan. Put that in your budget before you send it to me. So in 2 or 3 years, I think our HR department, in particular our HOD part of our HR department, is going to be way different than you see it today, because we can't get this done without them. It'll take a while. It's going to take strategic investment, not just in our people, but in our processes that support our people. But we're going to make this a great place to work. All of these align with the single accreditation as the first step to become the technical college of Texas that places more Texans in great paying jobs and is a fabulous place to work. Now, before we get to the questions, though, let me make an announcement if I could here. Rob and Elton, come on up. I told you that most of the changes that we see in personnel, most of them are going to happen toward the top end of the org chart. Well, here's the first one. And it's first because student learning and student development together make up 70% of our budget and our people. Okay. Elton has been with us forever. He started at the bottom as a student, worked his way up, ended up with a doctorate, and was president of TSTC Waco. He is an amazing administrator. And so he was the consensus choice by all of the other executives in Texas that he will lead our student learning and student development effort across the entire state. All the faculty and all the student development people across Texas will be in Elton's division. And so we need a leader for Waco. That choice was easy. Rob Walliver is now the new acting president of TSTC Waco. Now, we're calling him acting right now because the titles are going to, we aren't sure what SACS is going to be okay with in terms of our titles as we go forward through this accreditation. So that one's really easy to do, and we're just going to put acting on it. But he's the guy for Waco.